I will be reading from the NIV, and the Bible text is Jeremiah 18, 1 through 8. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message. So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as it seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to me. O house of Israel, can I do with you as the potter does, declares the Lord? Like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, of the house of Israel. If at any time I announce that a nation's kingdom is to be uprooted, torn down, and destroyed, and if that nation I warn repents of its evil, then I will relent and not inflict on it the disaster I had planned. And now Kevin Whitmore will bring our message.
You're probably wondering who was the guest speaker, the guy with the necktie. Gives it away every time. I wasn't sure. I looked up your website, saw the pictures, saw people pretty casual, and my wife said, "What are you going to wear?" I said, "I go with the best to cover up this because I need to." Wore the neckties because I got to put the clip on there. Is it on? It's on. Got it now? Then we'll wear the necktie so we can put the little red light on. You gotta have something to put the microphone to. I can stay behind here. Let me know if you can't hear me. You get that thing that you're showing for people with hearing impairments so that they can hear better. And my wife's sitting there nudging me like, "You need that." Come on, I've been married for 39 years. I got selective hearing, you know. You guys know. Okay, we're going to switch. I think that one's working. Okay. Seriously, the last church I was asked to fill the pulpit in November is in Florida. Same thing happened. Same thing happened. So there we go. Glad we got this thing worked out. Okay. There we are. Okay. Yeah, I was talking about the hearing thing. My wife's texting me like, "Yeah, you need that." And by the way, my wife's sitting in the back, and if she leaves, it's not because she doesn't like to hear me talk. That's what she said. She's kind of a troubleshooter for the home health nursing company she works for. She's on call, and she gets a call. She's got to leave and go someplace. So you might meet her later on, and I might talk to her, drive me home later on too. I'm Kevin Whitmore, live in Fairmont, Indiana. I'm ordained by the Church of the Brethren. Been involved in various kinds of ministry, pastoral, youth, missions, most recently did music at the Anderson Church of the Brethren. Right now I'm taking a break from vocational ministry, and it gives me the opportunities to visit other churches. I've been going to, Sharon, I've been taking our Sunday mornings visiting churches of people that we know are on the staff, and it's kind of been fun to do that, just take a break and see how other people do things. Glad to be here this morning. It was called to preach when I was in college, and I've never turned down the opportunity. So I'm glad to be here, and hoping that you're going to be able to stay awake. Also, I was very pleased when I saw the bulletin cover, because it has a reference to the passage in Jeremiah that I'm using today. It also has a place for notes, and that's good. It's good to take notes as long as you're not writing notes and passing them next to the person next to you. That's not a cool thing to do. Preachers are pleased when you take notes of what they're saying, but not when you're passing notes. Okay. But that passage in Jeremiah talks about the potter's wheel. If any of you are artists or hung around artists, you may have seen that pottery wheel. That's a fascinating thing to watch. They got that wheel going, and they take a lump of clay, put water in it, and they start making that thing, and it's fun to watch it go into shape. But I keep looking at what the people look like they're doing it. And it's very beautiful, it's very graceful to see that pot come into shape. If they don't like it, they can start all over again. And I'm looking at that, but I just don't like to get the clay into my fingernails. I think it'd be, great to have that kind of talent, but at the same time I'm like, ugh. I just don't know about that part of it. But that's what God does in our lives too. And sometimes, another analogy, I think God sometimes in the business of dumpster diving. And if you know what that is, if you've ever heard of it, sometimes people will raid dumpsters to see what they can find. And sometimes they're looking for something valuable, sometimes they just want to survive. And I'm not going to judge people who do that. I've worked in all kinds of businesses. Currently I'm working at a restaurant, and we have a dumpster out back. And once in a while, when I'm taking the trash out, I see that some people have gotten in there and gone through it. And, well, bless you for what you find there. I hope it helps you in some way. We also live near a college town, and at the end of the school year, there's dumpsters on the campus, and I see some pretty interesting furniture that the students will just dump in there. And I know some people have gone and pulled out some pretty good pieces of furniture out of dumpsters like that. But God is in the business of dumpster diving. And our lives are like those items that are tossed into the garbage. We're ruined. We feel worthless. And that's when God does the dumpster diving. He can reach down and pull us out of the garbage, clean us up, and remold us into something beautiful and useful, even after we think we've completely blown it. And I call this the remolding hand of God. God can take your messed up life in His hand and say, I want to give you another chance. I thank God for a hand like that, because all of us have messed up at some point. All of us have ruined something in our lives. You might think that you've ruined everything, but then there's God's remolding hand. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to give you some examples. First, I want to talk about a wicked king. That's the only way to describe this guy. You'll find his story in 2 Chronicles chapter 33. It's a story of a king who started out all right. His name was Manasseh. His father was Hezekiah, and he was a man who made some mistakes, but he trusted in the Lord more than any other king of Judah. Hezekiah died, and at the age of 12, Manasseh became the king. He reigned for 55 years, and the Bible starts right off telling us Manasseh did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. That does not look good on a resume. Not a good way to do business. He did everything wrong. In verse 9 of 2 Chronicles 33, Manasseh led Judah and the people of Jerusalem astray, so they did more evil than the nations the Lord had destroyed before the Israelites. Sorcery, witchcraft, idolatry, you name it, Manasseh did it. He even sacrificed his own sons as part of a demonic ritual. It took one devastating blow to bring him around. That's when the Assyrians came riding into town. They captured Manasseh, put a hook in his nose, handcuffed him, and took him to Babylon. They threw him in a dark, dirty jail cell, and nothing can improve your life more than that. Nothing will improve your prayer life more than being in that situation. Verse 12 says, in his distress he sought the favor of the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. And when he prayed to him, the Lord was moved by his request and listened to his plea. So he brought him back to Jerusalem and to his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord is God. After years of rebellion, Manasseh came to his senses. He knew that the Lord is God. Those 4 words changed his life. The Lord is God. When you look at the story of Manasseh, you've got to believe in a God of second chances. If you're struggling with the issue of a past sin in your life, I'll submit to you a God who has a hand that will remold you, just like it remolded and reshaped that man. Then there's a rebellious preacher. You'll find his story in the Old Testament. They named a book after him. His name was Jonah. And you know his story. God called Jonah to be an evangelist to the residents of Nineveh. Joseph responded the way a lot of people do when they're asked to preach. I'm not going to go there. He ran the wrong way. He rebelled. He wanted to get as far away from that responsibility as he could get away from that calling, so he got on the first boat he could find. Things were okay for a while, then there was a mighty bad storm that came along, and at his own request, Jonah said, "Throw me overboard." Some people say he had a death wish, he just wanted to get it over with. I'm not sure about that, but God wasn't finished with Jonah. Jonah was swallowed by a large fish, and after 3 days, even the fish was sick of Jonah, and you know the story. Kind of belched him up there on the shore. And for centuries, people have debated whether it really happened or if it was just a myth. Some people say it couldn't have happened. But science has proved that a man could survive that long inside a fish. It's happened at other times. Some say it was a whale, not a fish. Some say it was a sea creature. It really doesn't matter to me. The most important thing is not that we look at the big fish, but we see the big God behind it all. Jonah chapter 3 begins with these words. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Listen to this. God's hand is the kind of hand that can pick you up from the sandy beach like he did Jonah, clean you up, forgive you the mistakes you've made, and give you another chance to serve him. Some of you are familiar with the writing of Max Lucado. He had this story in his book, No Wonder They Call Him Savior. It talks about Maria. Maria and her daughter Christina lived in a poor neighborhood in the outskirts of a Brazilian village. Maria's husband had died when Christina was an infant, and she never remarried. Times were tough, but at last Christina was old enough to get a job to help out. Christina spoke often of going to the city. She dreamed of trading her dusty neighborhood for exciting adventures in the city life. Just the thought of that horrified her mother, who knew exactly what Christina would have to do for a living. That's why her heart broke. That's why she couldn't believe it when she awoke one morning to find her daughter's bed empty. Knowing where her daughter was headed, she quickly threw some clothes in a bag, gathered up all of her money, and ran out of the house. On her way to the bus stop, she entered a drugstore and got one last thing: photos. She sat in the photograph booth, closed the curtain, spent all the time she could making photos of herself. With her purse full of small black and white photos, she boarded the next bus to Rio de Janeiro. Maria knew Christina had no way of earning money. She also knew that her daughter was too stubborn to give up. When pride meets hunger, a human being will do things that before were unthinkable. Knowing this, Maria began her search. Bars, hotels, nightclubs, any place with a reputation for streetwalkers or prostitutes. She went to all of them. And at each place, Maria left a photo, taped to a bathroom mirror, tacked to a hotel bulletin board, fastened to a corner telephone booth, and on the back of each photo she wrote a note. Then her money and pictures ran out, and Maria went home. A few weeks later, Christina descended the hotel stairs. Her young face was tired. Her dreams had become a nightmare. But as she reached the bottom of the stairs, she noticed a familiar face. She looked again, and there in the lobby mirror was a small picture of her mother. Christina's eyes burned and her throat tightened as she walked across the room. She removed the small photo, and written on the back was a compelling invitation. Whatever you have done, whatever you have become, it doesn't matter. Please come home. And Christina went home. God is that God of the second chance. He can and He will forgive you and give you another chance to serve Him. Next, I want to talk about a devastated disciple. This was one of God's star players who needed another chance. Matthew chapter 26 tells the story of this fellow. His name was Simon Peter. He told Jesus he would never leave his side no matter what happened. And Jesus said, "Peter, before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you ever knew me." Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, beaten to a bloody mess by Roman soldiers. And while all this was going on, Peter was waiting outside. Matthew chapter 26, beginning of verse 69, Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway where another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath. "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you're one of them, for your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Peter messed up big time. He was captain of the team. He dropped the ball. He let everybody down. And that proves that any of us can mess up. And I'm so glad for what happened later on in the 21st chapter of the Gospel of John. Jesus was resurrected. He was alive again after his crucifixion, hanging out with his disciples, giving them some final instructions. And he said, "Peter, let's take a walk down the beach." And they went walking. And 3 times Jesus asked him something. He said, "Peter, do you love me?" Some people say he was trying to even the score, because Peter denied him 3 times. He was giving him an equal opportunity to 3 times to say, "Yeah, I'm going to make it up to you." I don't know about that. I think Jesus just wanted to be sure. And he used a very strong language. They were speaking the Greek language, very descriptive language. And when Jesus was saying, "Peter, do you love me?" he wasn't saying, "Hey, you my buddy, you my pal." The words he was using was, "Peter, are you totally sold out to me?" And I think his voice rose each time he asked him, "Peter, are you getting it all?" And Peter said, "Yeah, Lord, you know I am." "No, Peter, do you really love me more than anything?" And Peter said, "Yes, you know I do." And then Jesus said, "Peter, I have to know. Are you totally sold out? Are you totally dedicated to me? Are you giving it everything you've got for now and for all time?" And that's when it hit Peter. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know I'm not lying. I'm yours." And Jesus said, "Okay, Peter. I just wanted to know. I'm going away for a while. I want you to take care of things." And when God needed someone to preach the gospel to the Jews, Peter was the guy to do it. God is the God of a second chance. In the late 1800s, Thomas Edison was working on a newfangled contraption called the light bulb. Wonder how that thing turned out. But he had all his crew working for him, people of all different ages, and they finally put together what they thought would be the first incandescent light bulb to work. And they got the final push together. It took them 24 hours to finally get the first one in place, plug everything in just right. And then it was time to plug it into the power source. And Edison picked it up, put it on a pillow. And he turned to a young assistant who was just working there, a kid, probably a teenager. He said, "Take it upstairs. We're going to plug it into the power source." And the kid took it and started to go up the steps and, oops. Edison didn't say much, but he gathered everybody else. They had all the stuff they needed to make that light bulb work for 24 more hours to get the first one done. And Edison put it on the pillow. He picked it up, and he turned around and went to that same young man. He said, "It's time." And the kid took it up the stairs, and, "Well, look what we got now." But that's true forgiveness. That's what it means to give someone a second chance. Thomas Edison was willing to give his clumsy assistant a second chance. God was willing to give Simon Peter another chance to overcome his fear. I'm thankful that we have that God of the second chance. In the courtyard of the cathedral in Florence, Italy, there's a huge piece of useless marble. And one sculptor had come along and tried to do something with it, and it just didn't work, and he just messed it up. And it sat there, there were weeds growing around it and dust covering it and everything else. I think they had a weed eater back then. And we have called Da Vinci and said, "Can you have been a weed eater?" Work around this thing. And it just sat there, worthless. And someone said, "Well, there's this new guy, a sculptor named Michelangelo. Let's see if he can do something with it." And he came and looked at it. Got down, looked at the grades, saw the mistakes that the other sculptor made. And he said, "I think we can do something with this." And they picked it up, took it into one part of the cathedral and set it up, and kind of barricaded off. Michelangelo went to work for 3 years. And this is a worthless hunk of marble that they called the giant, because they didn't know what to do with years, Michelangelo worked at it, chipped away, polished it, sanded it, did whatever he had to do. And when it was done, it was 18 feet high, 9 feet across, weighed 9 tons. And when it was finished, they unveiled it, and it was a famous statue of the shepherd boy David. And you've all seen it, and how perfect it is. And they unveiled it, and one of Michelangelo's students said, "Master, it lacks one thing. It cannot speak." Worthless hunk of marble that they'd given up on, but when it was done, it was so perfect. They expected it to talk. It's amazing what a second chance can do. I want to go back to that 18th chapter of Jeremiah. This is one of the most comforting passages in the Bible. Beginning at verse 3, Jeremiah went down to the potter's house, and he said, "I saw him working at the wheel, but the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to him. 'O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter does? Declares the Lord, like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel.'" There's a messed up vessel. In Jeremiah's day, that messed up vessel was Israel. Today, the messed up vessel is you and me. You may be here today needing God to remake you. You may need that remolding hand of God to reshape your life, to redirect you. And if you want God to make something useful of your life, you can draw comfort from the words of Jeremiah. The clay was useless, but the potter picked out the impurities from the clay, put it back in the wheel, and made it into a useful vessel. You need some reshaping today. You need the tender hand of God. Like the potter at the wheel, he can take the messed up clay of your life and remold it and give you that second chance. God will do that for you. I'm going to ask you to pray with me. And as I lead you in prayer, you might want to join along. Have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Wounded and weary, help me, I pray. Power, all power, surely is thine. Touch me and heal me, Savior divine. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Hold o'er my being, absolute sway. Fill with thy Spirit, till all shall see Christ only always, living in me. Amen. As we are dismissed, I want to thank you for the hospitality you've shown us, for your patience, your kindness, evidence as we walk in the door. Let's pray that the revival will continue, that the remolding will continue, that the revitalization will continue. I'm praying for the search committee, for all the things you're going through with this congregation. I've been involved in several pastoral searches myself. I know what you're going through. The pressure, the details of getting it right, the ultimate goal of finding the right pastoral leadership for this church. Let God take control. Be revived, be remolded, be revitalized, live for Him.